Welcome everybody. My name's Jessica. If you haven't practiced with me before, thank y'all for joining me today for this yin practice. We are going to focus on the whole body. So we're going to start at our feet and move our way all the way up to the top of the head. For yin practice, if you haven't done it before, it's good to have a few props around you. So you can have a couple of blocks, a couple of thicker books, maybe if you don't have blocks at home. Sometimes a strap can be useful. A necktie or a belt will work as well. And then a bolster, if you don't have a bolster, have maybe a couple different size cushions. And I've got a blanket that I'm sitting on. And you can always have more props or less props, but these are really useful tools for the yin practice if we have not done it before. So for today's practice, we're going to start with a breathing technique called alternate nostril breathing, or Nadi Shodhana. And it is a breathing technique that's actually been studied clinically in clinical trials, and it's been shown to help reduce things like blood pressure and heart rate, and by way of that helping with things like anxiety, which some of us might be dealing with right now. It normally is done with a hand mudra, so using the hand to physically close off the nostrils, but since right now we are trying to avoid touching our faces, we're going to do the variation that is great to do during times of the year when we're stuffy and we don't feel comfortable closing off our nostrils. I'll admit it, I live in Atlanta, traffic is crazy, and I'll sometimes do it in traffic to help me out. This one, you may look a little less weird because you're not putting your hands to your nose, but we'll think about moving our awareness here, and it's pretty powerful to actually feel this shift side to side. When I first practiced this without the hand mudra, I didn't really think I would feel it, but once we work into some stillness and some quiet and we really do shift our attention, it's amazing the subtle patterns of energy that we can pick up on. So, starting to set ourselves up in a seat, whatever is comfortable for you. It doesn't have to be this Sukhasana or easy seat that I'm sitting in right now. Feel free to sit back on your knees and shins in a chair against a wall, and you've got all of your props to use. I'm a big proponent of props, so use them to make yourself really comfortable right now. We're going to sit up nice and tall. You can draw your shoulders up towards your ears and then back down on the back of the body. If you need a little bit of energy flowing in, you can turn the palms up. Otherwise, you might face them down. And we'll just work here, shifting our awareness from one nostril to the other. And we'll work out 9 rounds. Feel free to close your eyes or focus your gaze on one point. But let's take a cleansing breath here together. Deep breath in, out through the mouth. Draw your awareness to your left nostril, breathing in. 2, 3, 4, hold. Breathe out through the right. 2, 3, 4. Breathe in right. 2, 3, 4, hold. Breathe out left. 2, 3, 4. Breathe in left. Hold. Breathe out right. Breathe in right. Hold. Breathe out left. Breathe in left. 2, 3, 4. Hold. Breathe out right. 2, 3, 4. Breathe in right. 2, 3, 4. Hold. Breathe out left. 2, 3, 4. Breathe in left. Hold. Breathe out right. Breathe in right. Hold. Breathe out left. Breathe in left. 2, 3, 4. Hold. Breathe out right. 2, 3, 4. Breathe in right. 2, 3, 4. Hold. Breathe out left. 2, 3, 4. Breathe in left. Hold. Breathe out right. Breathe in right. Hold. Breathe out left. Breathe in left. 2, 3, 4. Hold. Breathe out right. 2, 3, 4. Breathe in right. 2, 3, 4. Breathe out left. 2, 3, 4. Last 2. Breathe in left. Hold. Breathe out right. Breathe in right. Hold. Breathe out left. Breathe in left. Hold. Breathe out right. Breathe in right. Hold. Breathe out left. Returning back to your natural way of breathing. Noticing if there's been any shift in how you feel your focus or attention. Moving your awareness to the space around your belly. Watching how it moves, when it moves, as you breathe in and as you breathe out. Let's just take a few moments with that. Moving one palm to your belly, feel physically the breath. Moving your other palm to the space above your heart. Feel physically the beat. Allowing yourself to set an intention or a dedication for your practice today if you wish. And we'll share our breath and our sound of Om together. I'll admit I am not the most spectacular Omer, but I'll give it a go here. And if it's something you've been shy about in a practice space with others, maybe this will be a good time for us to practice at home. We find our voice, and then when we come back physically together, we feel comfortable sharing it. Take a cleansing breath, deep breath in through the nose. Let it go through the mouth. Breathing in for Om. From here, we'll open our eyes, lift our gaze, and I will try to settle our little visitor somewhere else. So give me just a second. Okay, so our first posture today will be toe squat. This will be focus and a little attention to our feet and our toes, which some of y'all might get pedicures and you do that every once in a while, but how often do we actually treat our feet? So this first one, you may want to have your blocks nearby and your blanket, and we'll get started. This one's going to be a little bit shorter. If we haven't done the yin practice before, most of our postures tend to be grounded, and we work into longer holds, into more passive stretches. So with this first one, we don't hold it quite as long, so it'll be a little bit of a shorter one, and you might see why as we work into it if you haven't done toe squat before. So, grabbing our blanket if we need. This is going to help pad our knees if we have especially a thinner mat, or more sensitive knees, or maybe you've got like a concrete floor underneath you. Put this on our mat, and then we'll place our blocks out in front of us to have there just in case. So we're going to sit up off of our heels, and we want to look back and make sure that we can tuck all of our toes under. So we might need to reach back here and grab any little toes that aren't wanting to go with the rest of them and help them get tucked under. The blocks will come out in front of us, and then the posture is going to be about us starting to shift our way back to sit back on our heels. And it's going to be the weight of the upper body resting down through the heels, where we're going to start to probably notice this through our toes and maybe through the soles of our feet. I a lot of times feel it in my shins. And you might start to feel it, or maybe not feel it, but notice it in other parts of the body that are nowhere near your feet or your toes. So allow yourself a little bit of space to notice where else you feel this posture as we sit here a little bit longer. Now, if this becomes too intense, feel free to lean forward a little bit, hands on your blocks to get a little bit less weight. If you need a break, that's completely okay in any posture. You can sit up off the heels if you need to release them for a second and then come back. And when you're ready to join back in, you'll sit back on the heels. Now, the more we lean back, or even further back, the more we're probably going to feel this posture a little bit more intensely. So go at your own pace. There may be no one watching you right now, so at least we've got freedom of that if we ever get self-conscious in a studio practice. And allow yourself to be with your body, feeling it. When I teach this posture in studio classes, it's always interesting to observe. You'll see a lot of facial movements. You can sometimes see tense shoulders. I'll see a lot of gripping with the fingers. And so if you need to flip the palms up, sometimes that's helpful to release the hands and the fingers. If you need to shrug the shoulders up to feel what that feels like and then relax them down, you can. Sometimes this is a good one for people to come to the breath. So for us to be with something that's a bit more intense or maybe a bit more uncomfortable, we come back to the breath and just feel it move. And those of y'all that like the ocean, it might be similar to the idea when we are sitting on the beach and you're just watching the waves move in and out. And that like soothing movement and sound. And those of y'all that like hiking or the mountains, it might be when we're in that quiet space and there's that rustle of the wind through the trees. And we've got that same same essence of nature within us. So feeling the breath if you need to. We'll start to slowly come out of this one, leaning forward. You can bring your palms to the blocks and then to the mat. Shift up off of your heels. You'll slowly untuck your toes. If you don't live in a tiny condo and have downstairs neighbors like me, you'll just pound out your feet like crazy on the floor. I'm going to simulate it because I know my neighbor probably wouldn't appreciate this, but give them a good kick on the mat. Feel it pound out. Feel what your toes feel like. I know mine feel a little bit cold. So what is a sensation? How can you feel your toes? Maybe not in the form of a word. And then we're going to work into an ankle stretch here, so a counter stretch. Starting to sit back on the heels. If you need to sit on a block, it'll tend to be a little bit milder, but we might need that for our knees, so that's fine. Some people prefer to take child's pose here, so that's a great option. We're just pointing the toes in the opposite direction and bringing weight down on the feet. Now, if your knees feel okay, you can play with some other things here. Hands can come to the mat off to the side or even behind you, and you can lean back. I like to wrap around my booty, so I take my heels out a little bit and my toes in, and then I lean back, and this way I can get into my toes a lot more and just creating this rocking movement. Your ankle stretch, you can move through any of those variations that feel appropriate for you. We're just trying to find a little bit of release and counter stretch to what we just worked with, that what might have been for some of us a very intense toe stretch. Just giving ourselves some space to now feel this posture. And then anything else after that you want to do, feel free to do that. Maybe you want to move the legs out. We've had the knees bent for a little bit, so we might want to give them a good shake. If you need to move through the ankles, might look at your toes and just get a little bit more connected to them. How often during the day do you think about your toes? So give them a little bit of love and attention right now. We're going to give them a little bit more in the next posture if we want to play with that variation. So I'll give you an option for this next pose. Give yourself just another minute, kind of working out whatever it is that you need to work out or release from that last one. The thing I love about the Yin practice is that it gives us a lot of space and a lot of time to explore and to really find out what we like and what feels good. So our next pose is going to be butterfly. This will be a hip pose, and we're going to play with a variation called zipper toe butterfly. So if you want to work your toes a little bit more or play with it, you can. You can completely leave out the zipper toe part of it, that's fine, and just work butterfly. And let's get started. So I'm going to say it never hurts to sit up on a prop. So if you have a blanket, it's only going to help you out in this pose. If we've got any back issues, if we've got any like sciatic nerve issues, then going up higher on a bolster is probably going to make this feel better. Or you can stack a couple of blankets. So when we're using a prop in our Yin practice to sit on, we don't want to sit our booty back all the way flat on it. We want to sit on the edge of it. So we're going to come right on the lip so that we have the ability to kind of lean forward, because we're going to be taking a forward fold with this one. So the zipper toe part of this is kind of what it sounds like. We're going to zip up our toes. You might not get all of them, that's okay. Just try to get as many as you can. We're going to let the knees open out to the side, and we're going to draw the feet in. Now for just a second, if you're going to zipper them up, pull your feet in closer and kind of see what that butterfly feels like and where you notice it in your thighs or in your hips. And then move your feet out some and see where you notice that. Does it feel different, and where does it feel different? And then think about it for a second and kind of move in that direction for the one that you want to work into today. Have your bolster and your blocks nearby just in case. So if we're going to zipper up, we're going to take one big toe and we're going to place it on top of the other one. Then we're going to take that second toe and wedge it underneath that second big toe, and then we're going to come in with the second toe, and then we're going to come in with the first third toe and the second third toe, and we're going to keep going. You might get the first 3, you might get all of them. Gonna try to get them in there and zip them up just like we would zip up our pants. And so you've got these little guys crisscrossed if you want to do this. Again, completely optional. And then we're going to start to work into our butterfly. If you've zipped your toes up, take a second and just feel your feet. And notice what that zipper feels like. And then we'll see like how much of life does if it changes. We'll start to work into our butterfly pose. So we're going to come into a relaxed forward fold. You can walk your hands out in front of you. You can rest your hands on your legs or thighs. If there's any reason we should not round our back or let our head hang heavy, maybe we've got some disc issues, if you've got severe osteoarthritis, anything like that where the doctor does not want you flexing your spine, then as we work into any forward fold, you can just stay long and hinge at the hips. And you might bring supports in if you need to. If we're gonna be up a little bit higher, we might want something to rest on so we can lengthen out. Any sort of neck issues or whiplash or anything like that where we don't want to be hanging heavy, back of the neck is long, so you adjust for that. Otherwise, we're going to let ourselves drape down over the lower half of our body. Your forearms can come to the mat. Your palms can be on the mat. We're going to let the knees open up and let the back round and the head relax. Now, some other places we might need support here. If we have tighter hips today, or our back even, we might need to bring a little bit of support underneath our knees, our hips. You can feel free to wedge your blocks underneath. And then if you need a little bit of height out here, maybe it doesn't feel good for the wrist to be on the palms, or maybe you're somewhere in the middle, you can always bring your pillow or your blocks out in front. You can use this to support your forehead too. So I might relax down. I might do something like this with my block underneath my forehead. So we've got lots of options here. Now, I know there's some yin teachers that basically say no props, and we are not doing a restorative class. So we are not trying to support the body with props so that the body feels nothing. But at the same time, if there are parts of our body that aren't grounded, like if I were to hold my arm up and it's not grounded against anything, my body is going to have to engage muscles to hold that in space. And over time, that's just going to become more intense. Maybe more tight and maybe more uncomfortable. So I really feel like props are great when we have this kind of sensation. It might be happening with our knees. Our legs might start to tense up. Our breathing might start to tense up. And in that case, if we just come up with another shape of ground to support us, i.e. the prop, then we can, or the body actually does it naturally. It's able to ease into that. So this yin practice is about yielding to these first little limits or edges that we meet when we put our body in a shape, and just being really soft around that and exploring that. So my posture in a yin practice might look drastically different versus if I'm working my flexibility, or I'm in active stretching, or I've warmed up for an hour or two. So be mindful of that. Our intention for this practice is to be a bit softer, a bit more yielding, and that's kind of built in to what the nature of yin is versus yang. So finding your way into your butterfly or your zipper toe butterfly. You might notice tension through the inner thighs. You might notice it through the hamstrings or the back of the legs. We might notice it on the outside of our hips, and then also through the whole back body. And then those of us that have added in that zipper toe, draw your awareness back to your toes. And what do they feel like now? Do they feel the same? Or has what has occurred in a moment, what we feel in a moment, has that somehow been transformed by the passage of time? We'll spend a few more moments here with this pose. So finding your shape. Starting to bring your palms back to the mat. If you went down lower, you can start to lift your chest and your spine upright. There's no need to move quickly in and out or at all through this practice. So take your time moving back. You can use or move, any props that you might have been using out of the way. And then those of us that have those zipper toes still going, maybe they're all still latched on, or maybe some have let go, you're going to start to release toe by toe your zipper. And then again, bring your attention to your toes and your feet. And what is it that you feel or notice? It's interesting for me, that kind of tight, uncomfortable sensation as I sat with it, and then after I released it, there's all this cool space now, and the tension's gone. So what do you notice after putting the body in a physical compression or bind? What happens after we've released that? You can help the legs together, extend them out, give them a good shake if you need to, move through the feet. Sometimes a back bend can feel good after this. So if you want to lean back in your palms, I apologize for my very small space. You can take a little back bend or a big back bend. You can be more active. You can lift the hips up if you want to, shift a little bit side to side. And then bringing yourself back down again. And we're actually going to work into a back bend now. So we'll work into a counter posture for the spine and a more neutral position for the hips for this one. So for our back bend, we're going to do a supported back bend, either with a bolster or the block. We can use a strap if we want to, and we can also use our blanket if we want to. So if we want to use our blanket, it'll go towards the top of our mat. And we want to have it where the tops of our shoulders are going to slope off of the blanket, and basically our shoulder blades are going to rest on the blanket. So the back of our head will be on our mat, the tops of the shoulders will be on the mat, and the blanket's going to come underneath our shoulder blades so that the space underneath our collarbones and our chest is just a little bit elevated. Then we can have our block or our bolster to use. And if you want to use a strap, sometimes people like to do this variation, especially if we have our knees bent so that our legs don't have to work so much. So if you are going to use the strap, you're going to make yourself a buckle for your legs. So slipping through one buckle, pulling it up and over for your other side. And this would be drawn onto our legs, almost like we're going to put on a pair of pants or a skirt. We'll lay back on our backs. And again, I'm going to find myself where I have the tops of my shoulders coming down to the mat, and I have just a little bit of elevation underneath my heart here. You can always go up thicker on the blanket if you want to. Couple of options. My bolster's only one size, but it's nice and cushy. So if I wanted to, I could press into my feet. I'm going to tighten this strap up a little bit if I'm going to use it so that it doesn't fall down my legs. I'm going to grab my bolster if I want to try my bolster, press into my feet, lift my hips up, bring the bolster underneath my lower back or sacrum, and this can be my backbend. The strap just helps us help the legs relax a little bit here. So our legs don't have to basically hold themselves up. You can have it about your hip width or a little bit wider, a little bit more narrow, whatever feels comfortable, that distance apart, and the legs can just kind of fall into the strap if you want to use the strap. You definitely don't have to if you don't want to. So one option is to have my bolster. I've got this, but I have no options for height. So if I wanted to have that, I would use my block instead. The block has 3 different heights. So as we elevate our hips, we're going to find our sacrum, and that's the little flattish kind of bone that lives above our tailbone beneath our lower back. And as we settle our hips back down onto the block, that's going to be our sacrum. And we're going to kind of rest down, and we should be able to find that kind of flat shape that feels as if it wants to rest down. Now, this can be our back bend here, or in either one, you can play with your legs going straight. If you're on a higher setting on the block, that might be quite intense. So you can always adjust down. So if you want to, you can take the legs long down the mat. I can still use the strap and just have my legs fall out, or I can have my toes pointing up towards the ceiling. And if we take our legs all the way out, that compression on the back might jump up a little more than we want. So making sure that your back feels comfortable in whatever position you choose. There's nothing to say that legs straight is better. So work the variation in the height that you want to work. Can move your arms in different places to see how that affects the chest and shoulders by reaching up or out to the sides versus alongside your hips or on your belly. And then as you settle down into this, letting yourself feel that extension and compression that's happening in the back body, and your stretch or pulling through tension that might be happening in the front side body. Trying to discern between what feels like a beneficial compression, which is a back bend, versus if we're getting a pain sensation like stabbing pains or electrical pains, or we start to lose sensation in extremities, or we get that pins and needles type feeling. Those are our warning signs. It's like, hey, let's just take a step back here. So listening for those cues, also breath and heart rate cues. If they're speeding up or getting staggered, maybe we just want to back out a bit. We'll spend a little bit of time here, you just feeling your body settling into this pose. I know I'm not there in person to address any concerns or variations or modifications, but feel free, if as you work through any of these videos, if you need to send me a message on Instagram's better than Facebook, I'm not on Facebook that often, or email me through my website, or at the bottom of this video I can send you some notes or record a little video that might show some other options for anything that we're working through that you have questions at home. Okay, if we have our legs straight out, we took them out. Let's go ahead, draw them back in, feet to the mat, knees up towards the ceiling. Just take a moment there. Maybe a little windshield wiper of your knees, left and right, left and right. We're going to take the legs up in the air. So make sure you're on a stable height of the block or your bolster. We'll lightly draw the knees in and then take the legs up. Doesn't mean the legs need to be straight, just that they're stretching up. And we can move the feet or the toes or ankles around here. You can move the legs around. If you had that strap, you might just let it kind of sink down your thighs towards your hips. That's fine. You can also take the legs a little bit more over the head if that feels appropriate. So you might just rock back a little bit, and that block or bolster can serve as a little wedge here. You can take the legs wider or the knees bent and just let the slightest rounding happen here at the lower back. It might feel good. We'll start to draw the feet back down. So bending the knees, placing the feet back onto the mat. So you can press into the feet, elevate the hips. I like to do a little shimmy here with my hips lifted once I get that prop out of the way. So you can swing a little bit if that feels good. Or again, bring the hips down and try out that windshield wiper with the hips down on the floor this time. If it feels good, you might draw in for some knee circles, a hand on each knee. Move them in opposite or the same direction. And then from there, you might want to come up, squeeze in tight, maybe rock a little bit side to side or up and down. Then moving the props and that blanket out of the way, we'll come to lay back on our backs. Just let yourself feel heavy on the whole back side of the body. What does it feel like to have done a hip opening pose where we took a forward fold and followed that with a more neutral hip position, but where we took a back bend? We're going to work a hinge transition here. So hands will extend alongside our body, palms flat on the mat, and then we'll lift one hip up and then the other to slide the arms underneath us. Draw the knees in a bit towards the chest, take the legs up in the air. Curl your chin in towards your chest, activate your core. We're going to be a little bit yawn-like here. You might have a double chin. I may have one right now doing this, but feel your belly engage. And then lower the legs. Feel the lower back still grounding into your palms or the mat. We'll swing the legs down towards the floor, up to the ceiling, and we'll rock all the way up to find our seat. And then We're going to work into our next pose, which will work the hips a little bit more, and also we'll start to move ourselves around our spine in a twist. Our deer twist is going to be next. This will put our hips into internal and external rotation at the same time. We've already done external with butterfly, so now we'll feel what it feels like to go the other way. We're going to add in a twist here, and that'll work the rotation around the spine. Sometimes I teach this with a bolster, and that kind of cheats on the line of restorative and yin. I'll show it to you here now, but feel free to do it with or without, whatever option and whichever way that you need to go into it today. So I will put a bolster and a block off towards one end to show you that variation, and then I'll show you the option without. So if we're going to try it with the block and the bolster, you'll put the bolster in one end of the mat, the block at one end of the mat, and we'll elevate the bolster up on top of that. In either variation, we're going to face away from the end of the mat. I'll put my sacrum up against the bolster if I'm using it. Otherwise, pretend like I have no props back behind me. Feet will go about mat width apart, and we're going to go to the left first. So we're going to let both knees drift over to the left. The right knee is going to roll in, the left knee is going to roll out. Now sometimes we need props to help us out there, so I'll show you that as well. As we roll to the left, we've got internal rotation right hip, external rotation left hip. You're going to look towards the end of the mat that you turned away from, or if you're using the bolster, looking out over that bolster, you can drag yourself out long here, and you can take your cheek down to the bolster and gaze towards your knees. That's going to be a little bit milder in the twist, or you can take it opposite direction. That's going to make it pretty intense on the shoulders, head, and neck. Okay, so we may have done that variation with the bolster and the block underneath us. You might want to work a variation without it. For the lower half of the body, if we need support, if you've got an uncomfortable floor off of your mat, feel free to use your blanket. You can use a block underneath the right knee on the side. Sometimes people need a little support for that knee so that it's not just hanging there. That could be a blanket or a pillow or a block. And then if we're not going to use the bolster and the block, we'd have our more 90-90 angle, and we would have just come down facing that edge of the mat. You can stay on your forearms. Feel free to come down with your forehead on the block. Or you can come down on your chest and chin. What sometimes happens with the lower half of the body is the legs start to creep in. That's fine if you need to do that and you just want to focus a bit more on the spine for the twist. But otherwise, we're going to have a lot of space between the right thigh and the inside of the left. Again, this kind of 90-90 angle, and that'll be the internal rotation and external rotation of the hips that we're working while adding in the movement of the spine. Like I mentioned with the turning of the head and the neck, it's going to feel quite different on your shoulders and on your back. So go to the variation that feels best for you and most appropriate for you, and then settling down into your variation of our deer twist. Just letting yourself settle in. Feel around the spine, head, neck, shoulders, and hips, how this twist is settling on your body. If you've gone down to your chest and chin or down to your forearms, we'll start to bring the palms back to the mat, either alongside the bolster or just on our mat. Lifting yourself up, walking your hands back, taking as much time as you need. Rotate around to the right, all the way around so we're facing the opposite end of the mat. Whatever goes here. Windshield wipers, back bends, forward folding if we need it. Lifting the hips up. Laying back on your back, immediately going to the other side. All of those are options for you. Just take a few more moments here with whatever you need to do. We'll start to get set up for the second side. So you can start feet about mat width apart. Turn yourself towards the right. Keep the feet wide. We're going to focus on the hips with this one. Bring in the supports if we need them there. Look towards that opposite end of the mat, either for our bolster and block, bolster or any props we may or may not be using. And then you're going to start to work down into this side and the variation that you need here. Letting your head hang heavy versus keeping it lifted will feel a little bit different. You might use a block underneath the cheek or chin or forehead, or use your bolster block combo. So finding your way into your pose on this side. I can't be there with you in person to hold space for the practice like I would in a studio setting, but just know in a yin practice we can have pleasant days and we can have challenging days. We can feel overwhelmed or anxious or like we just can't be in this body or in this brain. And we can have days where it's really easy and peaceful and calm. And if it helps you to know that I've been there, I've been in all of those places, in a studio, at home, wherever it is, you're not alone. Those sensations and feelings and emotions and thoughts, they've probably been thought or felt by the majority of the people that have practiced before, and that they are okay. And just being with it in the way that you need to be with it today. Start to slowly make your way out of your deer twist, coming back up to your forearms, your elbows, your palms. Starting to turn yourself back, facing the end of your mat, and then move the body again. Shake it out, roll it out, move the props out of the way if you need to. Finding your ways to release those two twists, that hip work, and coming into this moment. We're going to work up through our neck a little bit, our shoulders, our head, and then we'll focus a little bit on the face. I had a student ask me for a little bit of face yoga. It was something that I did with Bernie Clark when I trained with him in the Yin training, and it can be a little silly and a little awkward, so it might be a good practice for us to try while we're at home when no one's watching us. But when you've gotten your body all worked out and you've moved your props out of the way, we'll swing back around, we'll come back, and we'll just focus a little bit on our head, neck, and shoulders. So doing some shoulder circles. You can go backwards or forwards first, it doesn't matter. You can do both at the same time like I'm showing right now, or you can do one at a time. You can add in a little twist of the spine with that one if it feels good. So just work it out. The arms can come with you, or the hands can stay resting down. You can make it as big or as small as you want. And start to move in the opposite direction. This one feels a little bit more awkward for me, so you might have one that feels a little bit more awkward for you. Again, you can do one at a time. You can make it big or small. I'd say really use this home practice time as a time to dive into, if we've got feelings of self-consciousness, just like get into it. The more comfortable we are here, the more comfortable we probably will be when we can encounter other people again. Let's bring the hands to the tops of our shoulders. We'll just make big circles. Again, this can be one at a time or two at the same time. Feel the armpits and your biceps and your triceps and the movement in your shoulders. We'll go the opposite way. Not really yin movement here, but just some gentle movement to counterbalance our practice so far. Drawing the chin in towards the chest as you relax the arms down. You'll roll one ear to one shoulder. Coming back through chin to chest. Opposite ear to its shoulder. We'll just go back and forth a few times. Feeling these little arcing half moon shapes. Are you feeling that opposite side, the back of the neck as you come down through center? As you come to your first side again, we'll start to take it around to the back. Rolling it all the way around, chin to chest. We'll come up through center. Let's draw the right ear and right shoulder towards one another. And so I'm doing what I'm saying, so it's going to look like the opposite. So just right ear to right shoulder. The right arm will reach up and over. We're not going to try to yank our head down to feel that stretch, but the weight of the arm resting on the head, we should feel that maybe a little bit more in the left side of our neck. And then if you want to explore some different sensations with the left arm, you can move it. You can stretch it out, see what that feels like. Or you can just find that one spot where you want to hang out. You might try what it feels like to draw your chin down towards your armpit a little bit and have it be more neutral. Or even take it up a little bit and see how just a half an inch can make a big difference in what we feel and how we feel it. Take another couple of moments here. Start to release that right arm. Draw the chin back in towards the chest. We'll roll it around to the other side. Left arm will come up and over. Again, we're not yanking, it's just the weight. And then if you want to explore something different with that right arm, it might be too intense to reach it out, so you can just have it resting on your right thigh or alongside your body. Or you can explore stretching it out or moving it around. If we took that right arm off to the side, sliding it back in, drawing the left arm up and down, and drawing the chin in towards the chest. Can roll it out a couple times here if we need to. Then we're going to work a little bit on some of our facial movement. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to make our face really scrunchy. So make our eyes really tight, make our mouth really small. Squeeze that in. Keep breathing. Release that. Let's try it again. Scrunch it up real tight, real small. Let it go. Now make a big surprise face. Big eyes. Lift your eyebrows. Big wide open mouth. Let it go. Make sure we're breathing. Again, make it real big, real surprise. Oh my God. Let it go. We're gonna puff up our mouth by holding our breath. So we're gonna purse our lips together and then send our air out into our cheeks. Make your cheeks real big. And then release that. Try it again. Make sure you keep breathing. Again, we're going to purse our lips. We're going to try to puff up our cheeks like pufferfish. Let it go. We're going to scrunch our face to the right. So we're going to try to pull our mouth, pull our left cheek, everything towards our right ear. You can even take your gaze to the right. Come back through center. Let's take it off to the left. Back through center to the right. Back through center to the left. One more time. Back through center. Move your jaw a little bit left and right. Around in little circles. Big smile. Let it go. Another big smile. Let it go. And and then we'll start to settle ourselves down for Shavasana. This posture, we do want it to be as comfortable and supported as possible, so feel free to use all extra props that you want to make yourself comfortable. It might be you using a blanket to cover up with, or to use as a pillow underneath your head. You can use a bolster underneath your knees. This would be lying back flat on our backs. This option, you can cover up with a blanket. If we've got any congestion going on, if we're pregnant, it's not okay to finish off our Shavasana this way. Some other options would be side lying. You can either squeeze the bolster, have one thigh on the bolster, can rest here on a pillow or a blanket. Some of us might sleep this way, so it can make sense here. Or you can elevate up the spine on a bolster, so taking that shape that look like what we use for that deer twist, and you could have a slight elevation here of the spine if we need it, especially if we're feeling congested. You could have a blanket or a pillow underneath the knees. Some of my students like to ground their belly with something on top, so sometimes just the sensation of something heavy on the belly can make us feel, I'm guessing the sensation is less vulnerable, but that's just a guess. You can cover up the whole body if you're going to get chilly. Hands off to the sides or on your belly. You're going to make those last adjustments to make yourself as comfortable as possible here. I will cue us out of the Shavasana, so this is going to be your space and time to really settle in. Make your last little movements, last little adjustments that you need to make. Drawing attention for a moment to the crown of the head. Move your awareness to the skin and muscles of your face. Move awareness to the tops of your shoulders. Down through the length of your arms. And then notice all the way to your fingertips. Draw awareness to your chest, to your belly, the breath might be becoming a little bit softer. And draw awareness to your hips, your thighs, lower legs, all the way to the tips of your toes. Feel the back of your body heavy, as if you're sinking into your mat. And feel the front of your body melting down into that. Your mind might be awake and alert, but your body is becoming ever softer as you release into Shavasana. next breath in to be just slightly fuller, breathing in through your nose, letting it out through your mouth. Maybe without moving for a moment, feel that movement of energy and of awareness that occurs even in stillness. You might start to wiggle the fingers and toes a little bit. Maybe roll out the wrists and the ankles. And stretch long if you need to. Arms back alongside your ears, out through your toes. And then rolling yourself over to your right or to your left side. Coming back to yourself. And then when you're ready, starting to press through your palms, lifting yourself up. And just as we mentioned at the beginning of practice, finding that comfortable, supportive seat. Let's draw a hand to belly, a hand to heart. And do we still feel them both flowing? How are they and how are we different at the end of this practice? Everything does and will change. Noticing how we did along the way. We'll share our breath and our Om to finish off the practice. Breathing in. Let it go. Breathing in. Bow to yourself. Receive the energy of your practice and all of the teachers that you were gifted with through your practice today. I bow to you for taking this space and this time with me, sharing it with me. Thank you so much. If this practice sparked any questions or comments or feedback, you can leave them in the comments or message me. And if you like the practice and you want to share it with others, send them the link. I'll include my Spotify username so you can add in any playlist that you want to add in, or if you have your favorite, you can add those in. And I apologize for the hammering of my neighbor if you heard that. But y'all have a wonderful night, and hopefully I'll see y'all in person again soon, but maybe on this newfangled technology. Have a good one.